Sean Strickland once walked up to Khamzat Chimaev, tapped him on the shoulder, and quietly said 4 words: "Be nice. Don't hurt people." At the time, Chimaev was the most intimidating prospect in the building. Unbeaten, explosive, and physically overwhelming everyone around him. Most people saw Strickland's comment as sarcasm or typical gym banter. But years later, after UFC 328, those words suddenly carried a completely different meaning. On May 10th, 2026, at UFC 328 in Newark, Sean Strickland defeated Khamzat Chimaev by split decision to become the UFC middleweight champion once again. For many fans, it was one of the biggest upsets in recent MMA history. But according to Strickland, the result was not surprising at all. He believed he had seen the warning signs years earlier while training alongside Chimaev at Extreme Couture under coach Eric Nixick. Strickland's core argument over the years was never simply about talent. In fact, he openly admitted that Chimaev was one of the most gifted fighters he had ever trained with. The issue, according to Strickland, was structure and sustainability. He believed Chimaev's fighting style depended heavily on overwhelming physical advantages, relentless pressure, non-stop aggression, and a pace designed to drown opponents before they could settle into the fight. It was devastating, but Strickland questioned whether that system could survive against elite fighters capable of absorbing early pressure and extending the fight into deeper waters. Many people dismissed those comments as trash talk, especially after Chimaev's rapid rise through the UFC. Since arriving in 2020, Chimaev had built one of the most dominant resumes in modern MMA. He finished opponents across multiple weight classes, shattered striking and grappling records, and quickly became one of the sport's biggest stars. His victories over fighters like Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman cemented his reputation as a future champion. But Strickland continued to insist that Chimaev had not yet experienced true adversity inside the cage. The Kamaru Usman fight at UFC 294 became one of the first moments where critics started noticing what Strickland meant. Chimaev won the fight, but Usman, despite accepting the bout on short notice and fighting above his natural weight class, survived the early wrestling pressure and found success later in the contest. For the first time, Chimaev looked vulnerable over 5 rounds. Strickland argued afterward that the fight exposed structural flaws in Chimaev's approach, particularly the energy demands created by his aggressive style. There were also concerns outside the cage. Chimaev's massive weight miss before UFC 279, frequent camp disruptions, health issues, and inconsistent preparation habits added to the narrative that raw talent was compensating for deeper operational problems. None of those issues alone guaranteed failure, but together they painted a picture Strickland believed would eventually become impossible to ignore at the championship level. Leading into UFC 328, tensions between the two fighters exploded publicly. During the press conference, Chimaev kicked Strickland on stage after a heated exchange. To many viewers, the moment reflected emotion and chaos. To Strickland, it confirmed his long-standing belief that he had gotten inside Chimaev's head. He later suggested that fighters operating from complete control do not lose composure in moments like that. Technically, the matchup also favored Strickland in several key areas. Chimaev's finishing rate had declined since moving permanently to middleweight, while Strickland remained one of the division's most durable and defensively disciplined fighters. Strickland's takedown defense, pressure management, and cardio created the exact type of challenge many believed Chimaev had not fully solved yet. Over 5 rounds, Strickland weathered the early wrestling attacks, survived difficult moments, and gradually took over the pace of the fight as Chimaev slowed down. Some analysts have even compared this dynamic to the downfall of Ronda Rousey. Like Rousey during her unbeaten run, Chimaev developed an aura of inevitability built around extraordinary dominance. But according to this comparison, dominance can sometimes create narrative armor, a situation where hype and momentum cause people to ignore warning signs that are visible underneath the success. In this interpretation, Sean Strickland played a similar role to Holly Holm, the fighter willing to challenge assumptions everyone else accepted. None of this diminishes Chimaev's greatness. He remains one of the most dangerous and naturally gifted fighters in MMA today. But UFC 328 forced the sport to confront a difficult question. Can physical dominance alone sustain championship success without complete discipline, pacing, and strategic control? Sean Strickland believed he knew the answer years ago while watching Chimaev train in a gym most people were not paying attention to. By the time the octagon door closed in Newark, the debate had finally reached its conclusion. According to Strickland, the warning signs had always been there. UFC 328 was simply the night the rest of the world saw them too.